Back in 2015, a wildly popular HBO documentary called The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst, got huge ratings and big-time awards, including a Peabody. But now, lawyers for Robert Durst say the producers of that film manipulated Durst's words to make it look like he was confessing to murder. The 6-part HBO documentary, The Jinx, had all the elements of the classic How Did He Get Away With It?
The guy whose best friend was murdered, the guy whose neighbor in Galveston was dismembered.
And we witnessed a jaw-dropping end, an apparent confession to the murders.
What the hell did I do? Kill them all, of course.
At first, the media wanted to know why the producers held that juicy tidbit for so long.
But when did you all realize you had that recording, and when did you take it to the authorities?
They've had that audio for many months.
But lawyers for Robert Durst say the storyline is bogus, that there was no confession.
And what do you really think this was?
No, I don't buy that at all.
What else?
I think it was trickery.
In fact, a transcript of Durst's raw interview shows the two phrases, "What the hell did I do?" and "killed them all, of course," were heavily edited and moved around.
Did not kill my best friend.
As Durst is about to go on trial for one of the murders, his lawyers are seeking to have all the evidence uncovered by the Jinx thrown out, claiming this is show business. It's not a documentary. Actually, it's both. Quite honestly, the producers of this film did come up with a lot of evidence that they have subsequently turned over to police. Now, don't everybody disagree with me at once. However, the more I looked at that transcript and how they wove those two quotes into the documentary at the end, yes, they did it for dramatic effect. I do believe that. But really, that transcript, if you try to read it line after line, it's unintelligible. It makes no sense. He was a rambling, doddering fool who got off the chair and still had the mic on, and he's walking away, and he's talking to himself. I didn't really think it mattered, the order of things, because he was saying, oh, what do they think? You know, killed them all, of course. That's the way it came off in both contexts to me.
So you believe that the edited version really reflected the gist of what he had to say,
Yeah.
which is what the producers of the movie are saying.
I do.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think that it generally does, but hopefully at trial the entire transcript will be available to the jury, so all the evidence will be there. This one reminded me a little bit of when NBC News edited that Zimmerman tape.
Oh, yes.
And edited out the caller, the 911.
This is the Trayvon Martin.
Right, Trayvon Martin case, and it made it seem far more damning than it really was. But that was news, and this, again, to the last point, this was a documentary. Not all documentaries are straight down the middle of the road reporting news. Some documentaries are advocacy documentaries, and they're trying to present a point of view, and I think this one, and that's what it was doing, and to dramatic effect.
It is unintelligible, as you said, and I think the phrase "killed them all," of course, never is going to make you look good. It's going to raise questions naturally. But to turn it into a question that he asks and then immediately answers of himself without missing a beat implies an ownership of these alleged crimes that he didn't quite take in his rantings. So I think at a bare minimum, you can't flip the order, right?
Yeah.
If you want to butt the bites together to give it some punch, and you can't use the whole thing. So have him say, "Killed them all, of course. What the hell did I do?" At least don't do that. Don't reverse the sequence.
Yeah, because he did. He was answering his own question, and that was out of order. Yeah.
But or was he? We don't know if he wasn't.
News is different than a documentary,
Well,
I think, many times.
No, in the documentary, he was answering.
Got
his own
it.
question.
Well, I'll give on the one hand, on the other hand. On the one hand, I agree with you, Emily. I think that the actual transcript is pretty much as damning as the edited version that they came up with. On the other hand, it's not really attractive watching the sausage being made, is it? I think that newspapers and wire services tend to adhere to this very strict standard of quoting, and this completely violates that. But there's also certain types of magazine writing and filmmaking where this is pretty common, and I'm not sure the public understands that. It's not pretty to watch, that's for sure, even though I think that it is accurate in terms of what he was trying to get across.
Well, on the third hand, I think I really agree more that flipping that order was done deliberately to make it sound like he was in a coherent conversation with himself. And as you pointed out from the beginning, that this was the ramblings of someone whose mind was really not all there, which really raises the question about should it have been used at all, whether, and then to selectively pull out 2 sentences and make it sound like this was a coherent declaration of guilt, I do think crosses a line. I recognize that documentaries aren't always, they're not journalism in the same sense. However, this documentary was held up to be the confession of a guy. And you know, we talk about in investigative journalism, and I concede he didn't go out to do this, but that the story is only as strong as the weakest link, and when you make a small mistake, it questions the entire thing. I think this was a serious mishap by the documentary makers.